and welcome to the Gothic Unicorn and to another in my occasional Trash to Miniature Treasure series. Today I'm going to be returning to a material that, whilst it is most definitely something that most people would throw away, is an endless source of miniature building material for me. I am of course referring to cereal boxes. So let's get on with it. When I refer to cereal boxes, I am of course referring to the sort of fairly lightweight paperboard material that food packaging is made from. Now, I use cereal boxes because, one, I am of an age where I grew up on a particular TV programme in the UK and everything was made from old cereal boxes and sticky back plastic. If you know, you know. But I like it now because it gives me a reasonable sized piece of material to start with. I've got quite a good piece here. I cut my boxes, I flatten them first off, and I generally store them flat, and then I cut them into 4 pieces, so I get 2 larger pieces and then I get 2 smaller sides. That one is smaller than that one because I've actually cut off the bit where the glue overlapped, but this is how I choose to use it. You can use any food packaging. The only thing is, thicknesses will differ from brand to brand, so you really, if you're going to make something, you want to make sure you've got enough of that particular material to make what you're making. So that's why I go for cereal boxes, but any of this kind of paperboard, sometimes referred to as chipboard in the United States. I consider chipboard to be a bit thicker than this, but this sort of stuff, it's great, it's a brilliant material. Today I'm going to be making a piece for the doll's house. I'm trying at the moment to look at the doll's house in a more whole sense, not just fixating on individual rooms, and as a result I am sort of looking at various things and trying to come up with solutions. I want there to be fireplaces in at least 2 of the reception rooms, but I don't necessarily want an open fire. I've done the open fire, I love it, but whilst that works in the room it's in, I don't want that in every room. And I was actually inspired by a Doll's House magazine. Back once upon a time, when I started buying miniatures, I used to go out and I'd buy Doll's House magazines every month religiously. I bought at least 2, if not 3, and would pore over them for hours looking for ideas and never doing anything, but I used to look for ideas. But now the number of magazines has dwindled down and dwindled down, and I'm lucky if I can find 1 magazine a month. In fact, the last couple that I bought the last one, and I was really happy that I did that. But I bought one last week even. As I'm filming this, it was last week. Anyway, I bought one, and in there was a project made using polymer clay. And I looked at it, and not being one who uses polymer clay, I thought, well, that's really nice, but it's not for me. And then afterwards I got to thinking, you know, that would be really good in my doll's house. That would really help me with my fires. But I don't want to try with polymer clay. So I've got the cardboard out, I've got the cereal packets, and we're going to have a go today at making our own enclosed wood burning stove. The other trash item we're going to need to make the wood burning stove is some clear plastic. Now, if you've got younger children, or if you buy a lot of real toys for yourself, you'll have plenty of this, because those sorts of pieces that you get on toy packaging are brilliant. But I haven't got anything like that at the moment. So I've got this plastic insert from a candle gift set, and that has got some nice flat pieces that are going to give me enough for this particular project. You can buy acetate sheets that you could use, but the entire idea of this is to use things that would otherwise go in the bin. So this is going to be perfect. What I will do is I will cut out the flat pieces for what I need, and the rest of it will still go into the recycling. So this is my main materials, this and the cereal box. This is the one that's sort of given me a little bit of a headache because I couldn't find any. I know I've got some somewhere, but thankfully a little Christmas present came in handy. Obviously, the first thing you need to work out is what size you want your wood burning stove to be. Now, the example that inspired me in the magazine is a wider model with double doors, and it's really, really nice. But I just want one of those little ones that just has one door and fits within an existing fireplace. Still a nice little unit, but not quite so grand. And so I have been cutting out some strips, because I always start from strips of the board, and I've got strips for my front and back, my sides, for the top and bottom, which are slightly wider than the front and back because you want a little bit of an overhang maybe. And then I've got another piece that I'm going to use for the door, and what I do is I just mark them on the printed side in pencil so that I know which are which. And what I will now do is I'll now cut these down into pieces, because this is how I work. I use my paper cutter to cut my strips, and then I cut it down to size. So it works out fairly painless. You can, of course, cut it with a knife and a ruler. I wouldn't recommend cutting with scissors because you do need straight lines, and it is very, very difficult to get a perfectly straight line with a pair of scissors. Some people can do it, but you know, a straight line, straight edge is always great for doing this. So I'm going to cut all these pieces down, and then my next step will be to start sticking things together, because obviously this is not thick enough to make my piece. So I will be making thicker material by layering this up, and yeah, it's not difficult, but the end result should be worth the little bit of time that it's going to take. I gave a lot of consideration to what size I wanted my stove, with the example being a wider piece. I decided it was going, if I went with the sort of sizes that were suggested in that article, it was going to be too big for what I wanted, because I wanted to fit inside a fireplace. So I had a look at the fireplace that I'd made for the witch's workroom, and sort of used that as my starting point. And with that in mind, I came up with this. Now, these are my parts, ready cut and stuck together. The front and back of my stove are 1.5 inches high by 1 1/4 wide. I had a look at various pictures of various wood burning stoves and decided that this one, which is also kind of modelled after one that my in-laws have got, was the sort of design that I wanted. So this is going to be a single door rectangular unit. The sides are 1.5 inches high, obviously, by 3/4 of an inch, because it doesn't need to be as deep as it is wide. I've then got a top and a bottom that are slightly more than 3/4 of an inch by 1.25 inch. Only slightly. It's just because I want a little bit of a lip when it's all stuck together. And then I've got a door which is, I believe the door is 1 inch by 1.25 inches. Now from the front and from the door I've cut out a window. I've just sort of gauged it based on what I want, and I've left a fairly good gap at the bottom because of eventually fitting in a LED. Now fitting the LED is also the reason why I've punched a hole through the back panel. This will allow me to feed my wiring through, and then I can potentially fill it with some glue just to tidy it up, or even cover it with a little panel that sort of disguises the fact that it's there. If I use a little bit of black paper, you wouldn't notice that it was there, but if you look at it in relation to that, it's not going to be visible anyway. It's going to be in the back corner, and it will be in the back corner that way because I'm intending for this stove to go into my library. I had to work that one out. Lots and lots of thought, lots and lots of calculations, and then you get there. Obviously, I've got my various pieces, different thicknesses. There's only 2 thicknesses for that, but there's 3 for all the others. And then obviously, maybe not, the next thing to do is to start putting this together. Now I'm not going to put it together completely because, as I say, in the future I do want to wire it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together everything but the top. I'm going to leave the top off, and then I will be able to get in from above to fit the to retrofit the LED. So yeah, that's the next stage, is to start putting together the main part of the stove. The other things I want to do while I'm thinking about it here and I'm talking to you, I do want to add a little panel to the front of this, just along the bottom, which will make it look like there's a bit of a tray that you could pull out to help with cleaning. I've seen that on some of them, and then I can put a little a bead or something to make like a little knob that you'd use for cleaning. And you're going to need a handle, obviously, and I need some legs. Now the legs excuse me, the legs are going to be made from some of the pieces that I've cut off, and again I will be building them up by doing different layers to make it fairly sturdy. You could use some wood if you've got a strip of wood of a suitable thickness, but keeping with this being trash, I'm going to use the offcuts of the food packaging material. So I'm going to get ready to start sticking this together, and possibly so that it's actually ready when I need it, I'm going to start, I think, putting together material to make my legs. I added the little piece on what will be the front of my stove. I will put a tiny little bead on there in a while. I'm not going to worry about that just yet. I'm going to instead start with the sticking everything together, and I'm going to start with the back piece. Start with the back piece and two sides, and I'm going to stick the two sides onto the back. Now I've just got my ordinary glue, which it's not tacky glue as such, but it will work in a similar way if you let it sit for a little while. Now if I could find my building block pieces that I use as a bit of a jig, it would make my life easier, because obviously I want to stick this in place and ensure that it stays at a right angle. So I'm going to have to hold it. Now I am going to clean up the bit of glue on the inside. It's not essential because I'm not making this opening. You can, if you wish, make a hinge or hinges if you're going for a two-door version out of little tiny bits of cardstock and wire, but I'm going for the easy version. As I say, I'm going to eventually light this, but if you don't want to light it, what you can do is you can put some foil or some metallic paper, something along those lines, inside, so that it at least looks like there might be a bit of a glow in there. I'm going to now stick the other piece on. That one has held fairly well, and all I'm doing is I'm just putting a good but not excessive amount of glue on my sides. Obviously, because this is made up of multiple layers, you want to ensure that the glue gets down in between the layers of the material, because you don't want it coming apart. And then I'm going to stick this on in the same way, and as you can see, I've got the beginnings of a box, which is basically what this stove is. It's not fantastical. Now at this point I can go two ways. I can stick the front on, but that's going to make it very difficult for me to paint inside, or I can stick the bottom on and then paint this section and the front separately, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to have a look at my top and bottom, and the pieces, the nicer looking ones. I'm going to use this one for the bottom, and I'm going to choose the better side for the front, which is this one. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to stick this on so that there is a slight overhang around it. It might be a bit more of an overhang than I might want. I can trim this off afterwards with my craft knife. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom, which is this way, and I'm hoping this is, yes, this should be in shot. I'm going to repeat the process with putting the glue around here. If the glue you're using takes longer to grab, you just have to wait a little while in between doing things. This is one of those things where I can't tell you how long everything takes, because drying times, curing times, setting times are all very much dependent on your material. Now I'm going to leave this for a moment to start to go tackier because it's still rather runny. I'm going to trim this up because it's a bit uneven, and then we'll come back and we'll attach it. I've tidied up the bottom and I've given it a little bit of shaping on the front corners. And now I'm going to stick this into place. And what you want to do is you want to stick this so that the back of your bottom is level with the back of the stove body. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it over and I'm just going to check that that's even on there. That's going to leave a bit of a mess because I didn't clean it up first, but it doesn't matter. It will clean up. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold that in place for a few seconds. Give it a good squidge so that the glue runs out. And then I'm going to go around and I'm going to get the extra glue, particularly from around the outside. Like so. Make sure that's okay on the back. Inside I'm not so worried about. But I will just clean it up a little bit because why not? I know this can be left to dry. It's going to be left to dry, and then I'm going to paint the inside of it, and I'll probably do the outside, and I'll probably, while I'm on, paint my front. I'm going to paint the front, what would be the door, in two pieces. Obviously the main front and the door, just so that I don't get any paint on the plastic, because although the plastic should by rights look dirty, because it doesn't stay clean for very long even if you clean them up. I want to start off with it not painted black. So it's drying time and painting time, and when I come back all this will be undercoated. The paint has been applied. I've given this 2 coats of black acrylic craft paint, and as you can see I've also added some legs. Now, the legs I made from 4 layers of the cereal box material, and what I did is I just put a bit of shaping on the ones for the front so that they look a bit more attractive. Left the back ones as blocks, and I'm currently waiting for the paint to dry on those. So while that finishes drying, I'm going to put that out of the way. I'm going to look at my door, which needs some glass. Now this is a piece that I've cut from that plastic packaging. It's far too big, but what I did is I cut out one of the flat pieces just roughly with my craft knife so that I could work with it a bit easier. And I want, when I do this, to actually cut a piece that is slightly bigger than the window in the door, but I don't want it to cover the entire door because there's no need. So I'm going to get my craft knife out and I'm going to cut this down to size, and then we will stick this into place, and then we can stick the door into place on the front. The front also has been painted, and I'm waiting to do this because I want to add something to look like hinges. Now I'm not sure what I'm going to use yet, whether I'm going to actually use any of the leftover bits of the cereal box, or if I will just put a sort of blob of glue, or 2 blobs of glue rather, and let that dry off and then put a bit of paint on it. Could do that. If I can get it looking right, I might go for that option. But as I say, I could also go for just some little bits of the cereal box material. I stuck the plastic into place, which hopefully you can see by a bit of reflection there, and I've stuck the door onto the front panel of the stove. For the hinges, I decided to go with some pieces of a round toothpick. Now, most of the toothpicks that I use for applying glue and clearing up again are less regular in shape. These are nice round ones. They're more expensive, and so I tend to keep them for fancier pieces. And I've not painted it yet because I wanted you to actually be able to see what I've done. I've also, while I was on, stuck into place a couple of small black beads for the handles. Most of these sort of stoves have a handle that you fit in and lock in place so that it doesn't get hot with the rest of the stove. So I figured that these beads with the hole showing would work quite well for that. So that's my sort of reasoning with that. I'm now going to stick this into place on the front of the stove when I'm sure that the legs have dried, and I'm going to put a bit of paint on these hinges. I'm just going to paint them black because I do like the piece being black. I was going to go over it with some black metallic paint I've got, which isn't a really shiny metallic, but it does just add a slight hint of metal to it. But I don't think I'm going to bother. I think I'm just going to leave it matte black. It may get a coat of varnish in the future, but I think I'll be looking for some matte varnish to do that. I think I've got some somewhere, rather than even the Mod Podge, which still has a bit of a sheen to it. So a bit more gluing and we're almost done. And here we have the stove put together, minus obviously the top, which I'm going to leave because of fitting a LED light in the bottom. I will cover that in one of my videos. It won't be a video just about that, obviously, but I will make sure that it's noted in the description. Might be one of my vlog videos. I've got to find the materials to do it. I've got some little battery holders. This will probably be a battery powered piece, not wired into the doll's house, as my other fireplace lighting is. So I can do that using tweezers and the hole that I fitted. I can do that from the top, and then I've got my top ready, which will fit on. And if I just hold it in place, you can see I've got quite a nice looking little wood burning stove. Obviously I'll put some twigs or something in there to make it look like there's some wood in there, as well as a light. Now you will probably be thinking, but hang on, where's the chimney pipe? Well, I want this to go into a fireplace, as a lot of them are fitted into existing fireplaces in the UK. And so I don't know how much pipe I'm going to need because I haven't built the fireplace yet. But what I've got is I've got this cardboard tube, which was packaging off some really minis that I bought recently. And there are a few pieces. I've got a smaller piece as well. But if I just hold that into place, you can see that that is going to work pretty well. It'll disappear off into the chimney, and then that's all I need, isn't it? I just need a bit that will be visible when I fit it in, and then I will obviously cut it down to size or use a smaller piece and paint it up as appropriate. So this is how you can do a chimney pipe if you want it to be a more open stove. Obviously, if you can't get anything like this, just look out for anything inside of tubes, that kind of thing. Maybe even a big straw could be repurposed, or a tube off a pen. If you've got a nice round pen, you could use some of that and paint it up appropriately. Again, I would just glue it onto the top and maybe put some glue around it that I can paint over, so it sort of looks like there's a lot of weld or something there. So that is my sort of way of finishing this wood burning stove off. I hope that you've enjoyed this video and agree that I've managed to make another miniature treasure from trash. I'm pleased with the piece. You know, let me know what you think. If you have enjoyed the video, please like, comment and subscribe. It all helps my channel. And maybe even ring the notification bell. I upload a video most weeks, usually on a Friday, but I don't promise anything because real life has a habit of getting in the way, and unlike the minis, I can't control real life. But until next time, bye!